Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today's PTR build brought with it a handful of changes, fixes to Warlock Tier. Demo Tier, finally working with Tyrant extensions. Destro Tier, fixed the multiplicative scaling or whatever it was in AoE. I guess AF is still AF, but yeah, so with that being said, we can finally look at Warlock Tier in 10.1 for what it actually is, and talk about where it's good, where it's bad, and just go from there. Now, like always, weekly add-ons and profiles, links to Twitch and Discord down below, where they're all for free for you guys. And as usual, I also want to give one huge shout out to all my patrons. Before we get too far in the video, guys, thank you for all support on Patreon. 10,000 times, I really appreciate it. Heads up, the 10.1 Warlock PTR spreadsheet will indeed be going live on Patreon this weekend. The Tier 3 Felgar rank or higher gets early access to that if you're interested before it goes live publicly. And yeah, with that being said, let's just jump right into it. Alright, so getting into Demonology, the spec everyone wants to see, because it is finally fixed. Just to show you here very briefly, I will pop my Grimoire Felguard. So the bonus, the buff, I guess, the damage amp from GFG lasts for the duration of Grimoire Felguard. So here's Grimoire Felguard. There's the buff at 17, 16. I will Tyrant, and the buff is now extended. So they have indeed finally fixed Tyrant extensions with the 4-piece, which is huge for the spec, because no longer is Grimoire Felguard your final cast. It's now essentially your first cast, like usual, your Tyrant ramp. And there's the cool trinket procking too, the rare one from the first boss in the raid, by the way. If you haven't seen it, it's like Shadow Flame Wings, very, very cool. So the big thing here, this shifts you back to essentially having that normal Tyrant setup, and it means that every single Grimoire Felguard will line up with basically every single Summon Demonic Tyrant cast playing Reign of Tyranny. Now, the CDR from Grimoire is based on Demon Bolt cast, but even just passively, you typically cast enough to get the Grimoire Felguard cooldown below what Tyrant is. So it's very, very cool. This is the bonus we had hoped for 2 months ago whenever it was spoiled. It's finally working properly. Now, it might seem like a very substantial damage increase because it's sort of doubling the duration of the 4-piece, but a lot of that damage increase is active when you don't have the majority of your pets out, when Tyrant's not out, right? It'll buff your baseline Felguard more, it'll buff, you know, whatever you have out previously. But the big thing is that you are able to set up your Tyrant properly and not push Grimoire Felguard back to being the final cast and lose shards and lose pets. It feels so much better. So now, there are two builds I've been playing. This build is more or less the first one. It's just Immutable Hatred, Reign of Tyranny stuff. Now, this build does have one floater point here as your 10th point, and it can be spent theoretically in Calling, in Nether Portal, in Fel Might, in Fel Covenant. I don't see a better option here, realistically, than Nether Portal when it comes to just overall damage. The cool thing here, if you hate Portal, is that realistically, you know, you're not playing Ner'zhul's or Golan's Ambition, so if you scuff your Tyrant or scuff your Pit Lord, not really any Pit Lord to worry about. Now, the other build that I've been playing is looking like this. This is full Nether Portal, all that Pit Lord stuff, like this basically. No Immutable Hatred, but this is full Pit Lord value. This build burst higher for sure every 3 minutes with Nether Portal, Pit Lord, all that, but it does not sustain as much as the Immutable Hatred build. And from what I've seen, IH, this build here with Portal, looks to almost be the front runner. Unless you're getting Power Infusion, and Lust will also, you know, change that as well. That might shift it back more towards a Portal Pit Lord build. But for now, I'll have a video coming out this week later on looking at damage testing of all 3 sets now that they're actually working. But for now, let's get into it and just look at how it feels, right? So we're going to play this build here. Immutable Hatred, Nether Portal, all this stuff here. The setup for this basic opener here is going to be the same, whether you're playing, you know, this part of the tree or this part of the tree, because we're playing Nether Portal. So we're still going in for the full, you know, max pets, even though we're not getting a Pit Lord. Keep in mind, the sustain in this build is higher than the Pit Lord build, but the Pit Lord build burst higher. So let's go into this. Wait for an imp to spawn here. The big thing here, keep an eye on my Grimoire Felguard cooldown and my Tyrant, and watch how well they sync now. Let me change trinkets here. It doesn't even matter. It's fine. We don't need a trinket for this. So going into this, we end up precasting 2 Shadow Bolts. Going in. Nether Portal, Soulburn, Grimoire. It already feels great because I'm not pushing my Grimoire back forever, right? Dogs, I'll hand. Bolt, I'll hand again. We would Trinket here. We Tyrant, and we go hand, and hope for a refund. One final cast there. Didn't get it off, but close enough. It's whatever. With Lust, you will. And the big thing here, watch over time how my Grimoire Felguard cooldown will begin to surpass my Tyrant cooldown. When I cast Bolt, see Bolt there. Cast this here. Cast Dogs, Bolt again right here. It's already within 10 seconds of Tyrant roughly. And over the course of the next minute and a half, it will eventually surpass Tyrant and become a shorter cooldown, which means that for the most part, barring terrible RNG, you can just go Grimoire, Vile Fiend, Dogs, all that, and build into your Tyrant with lagging. And eventually, you'll have just Tyrant basically back on cooldown when it comes off cooldown. Very cool, very awesome to see. So we're going to Vile Fiend here, a bit late because of the lag, not the end of the world. The big thing here is you want to make sure you're casting bolts. Not overcapping on them, but also using enough bolts, casting enough where you're getting enough CDR, right? For example, there are times where if I have Siphon coming off cooldown or Dog expiring with 2 stacks, I might cast a bolt at 4 shards because I don't want to overcap, right? So we'll cast Dogs here. We're going to surpass Tyrant cooldown here, basically. We're a couple seconds before it. Cast Strength here. And you can see Grimoire has indeed passed Tyrant cooldown-wise. And we lagged a bit too, so it would even be a bit shorter here as well. Once again, lagging, welcome to PTR. So we're going to cast a hand here, a couple bolts, cast this Siphon, and you can basically Grimoire right now. We would have Vile Fiend here, we're a bit late on it because of the lag and stuff, no big deal. You get the picture. We'll cast Vile Fiend, we build the 5 here, we go Dogs, and we bolt and begin the hand cycling. And typically we'd have it 3 or 4 seconds before we did, just the lag, but it makes Demo feel so much better. It's literally when Tyrant's off cooldown, we can get it back on cooldown, barring holding it for 3 or 4 seconds. There's no minute 50 Tyrant due to casting Grimoire last. It feels really good. This is the way I had hoped bonus would work. It works with Nether Portal. It works with Immutable Hatred. Every minute and a half, you have a very, very, very strong Tyrant. Big damage, whether it's Pit Lord or Hatred build. Let's take a brief look at the opener with Nether Portal and full Pit Lord instead of Hatred to briefly compare the two. Alrighty, so we're playing full Nether Portal Pit Lord build here. Still playing a point in Internal Armaments and a point in Expendables, Ring of Tyranny stuff here. This opener will burst higher, we should, than the last one, but we won't sustain as much damage in between Tyrants and coming around again to Nether Portal. So, just like last, we're going to pre-cast Power Siphon here, go to 5 shards, and we begin opening up here. So we go double Shadow Bolt, we're going to Portal, pray for no lag. Soulburn, Grimoire, feels great casting it early here again. Vile Fiend into Bolt. Dogs, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Tyrant, Hand, and one final hand. I'll pot a bit late, but it's no big deal. Well, Demonic Strength, and the big thing here, we should burst higher than the previous build because Pit Lord is very bursty. Looking at our damage here, pull it up briefly. Tyrant cranking, number 1. Pit Lord slowly catching up here also, them fighting for number 1 and number 2 here. Obviously, this build with Power Infusion, with Bloodlust, will indeed put out a good bit more damage, I'd say, than Immutable Hatred in cooldowns. But once again, the sustain is not as high as Immutable Hatred because not a permanent buff on your Felguard, right? Now, the cool thing here, once again, watch the sync on my Grimoire and my Tyrant. Hopefully, we won't lag here. We can get a bit of a better sync this time, casting Vile Fiend on cooldown. Also, look at how funny it is. Imps overtake Pit Lord and quickly Tyrant as well, due to how strong they are. The buffs I've gotten over the last few weeks are just insane. So, yep, Grimoire's about to overtake Tyrant here in cooldown. There it is. It's about now. And this is more what it typically looks like cooldown-wise. You surpass Tyrant with about half a minute left on it. We'll cast these Dogs, cast a Bolt here, cast Strength. Now, I'm not going to get much more CDR here. We have one more Dog set coming in, one more Power Siphon. But barring random procs, we're close-ish to having to start to set up here, right? So we're going to cast this hand. We're lagging a bit. No big deal. Cast this. There are Dog procs. We'll do this. I'll Siphon. And we can cast one more Bolt. It's fine. No big deal. I'll go Grimoire. We'll Bolt. I'll be a bit lazy. I'll go Vile Fiend. Tyrant's off cooldown already. RNG's RNG. But either way, typically they sync up pretty well. You might sit on Tyrant for a few seconds, but it still feels infinitely better having the whole Grimoire for right now and lose value every single Tyrant. Because doing that, it just didn't feel good. CDs were awkward. It didn't feel like a minute and a half Tyrant. It felt like 2 minutes. And this makes it feel infinitely better. Plus, looking at the damage breakdown here, look at Tyrant. It's back to being a substantial amount of your damage because every single Tyrant has a Grimoire. Every single Tyrant has a Vile Fiend, right? Imps are still insane. They're going to be. They've been buffed 10 times over the past month or so, but nonetheless, it's pretty cool to see. Demo feels so much better. Out of all 3 bonuses, Demonology, hands down at this point, feels the best, and it's not even close. And it's relatively strong. Now, when it comes to Affliction Tier, not much really changed today. Nothing really changed today. There is one question that I'm still sort of unsure about, and that's the difference between Vile Taint and Phantom Singularity. So the tier bonus says that the 2-piece Vile Taint's cooldown reduced by 5 seconds and Singularity reduced by 12 seconds. Vile Taint and Singularity damage increase, sure. The 4-piece, enemies damaged by Phantom Singularity gain Infirmity for its duration. Singularity's duration. And enemies damaged by Vile Taint gain Infirmity for 10 seconds. Now, currently, currently Vile Taint's Infirmity is lasting for the entire duration of Vile Taint. Meaning if you extend Vile Taint with Dark Glare, you get it for its entire duration. It's not just 10 seconds baseline. If that's the case, for that and a couple other reasons, I think chances are decent you end up playing Vile Taint over Singularity regardless. So the cooldown on Vile Taint baseline with the bonus, 25 seconds. Phantom Singularity 33. Now, I'm playing a Haunted Soul build here. I'm going to show Malevolent Visionary for this reason. If you're playing Malevolent Visionary, Dark Glare lasts half a minute. You can get 2 Vile Taints in your Dark Glare cast, so it gives you another window of Infirmity towards the end of Dark Glare, buffing Eye Beam, which is increased by Malevolent Visionary. It also increases just baseline damage, a bit more when Dark Glare is out. It's not bad, right? The synergy there, I guess, synergy if you want to call it that. The other reason, though, is that, so I'm playing Soul Rot with this build, and while Singularity is 33 seconds, having that extra 3-second part on it, being 33 instead of 30, means that you're Dark Glaring at like it's like 230 or whatever again, with the 3-second pushback, 3 seconds, and then 3, then 3 again, every Singularity cast. So it ends up being like a 225, 230-ish Dark Glare, and it's really awkward with Soul Rot timers and things. So, like briefly here, I'll show you the Singularity parts, and then we can look at Vile Taint, opener-wise for both, right? Now the cool thing is that you can sort of hold every other PS will have a Soul Rot in it playing this build. But like I said, the syncing of Dark Glare is sort of awkward. So I'll stack my pet here. Also, Vile Taint being a shorter cooldown means more frequent Infirmity buffs and all that for a larger damage increase. I think VT will likely be the play in the long run, but we will we'll see. So you open up on Haunt into a UA, Agony, Corruption, Siphon. We're gonna drain here to 3 stacks. So we go PS, we go Soul Rot, and we go Dark Glare here. Go Rapture a bunch, there's a proc. Get Dread Touch up, 2, 3 Dread Touches here. We'll drain for a proc if we get one. We don't, it's alright. Dump a few more shards here. Now the cool thing here, I guess the important thing here, watch the cooldown on Singularity and watch my Soul Rot cooldown as well. So once again, every other Singularity will basically align with Soul Rot, being nearly half a minute. But you gotta hold for a little while. So Rapture one's here to catch that. We have Singularity now, we'll just toss it up. Why not? Fresh Agony. Rapture a bit here. Dump some of these, catch this UA. Catch Corruption, dump this Soul-like, or Drain Soul. A few procs, sick, that's cool. So watch, look at the sync here, right? I don't know why I can't reply. Oh, I love his Evoker, so this crap down here, it just blocks my LOS. So you can basically sync here in about 8 seconds, roughly, right? But at the same time, watch my Dark Glare cooldown. So we're going to go into this, refresh Dread Touch again, waiting on Singularity, going to refresh here. I'll Singularity now, it's fine, doesn't really matter. Catch the Agony, whatever, you get the gist of it. We'll Soul Rot here, but we're at like 120, right? We're at 120. Dump this proc, dump this 2, why not? Catch the Siphon Life. So next Singularity is going to be roughly 150-ish, but then look at Dark Glare. Do you hold it for the Dark Glare? Probably not, because you have Soul Rot. But what do you do here? You just dump it, right? So we have Singularity now. You have Dark Glare in 20. You have Soul Rot in 30. So I guess you just Singularity now and try and get some value, right? This rotation might not be optimal. Just a general purpose to show the cooldown timings right. Rapture again here. Drain. So now we have Dark Glare in 8 seconds. We have Soul Rot in 15, but we have Singularity in 18. So the cooldown sync is exceptionally awkward with this being the case. I think it still works out okay in the long run. It'll be a sim thing, but I'd be surprised if Singularity overtakes Vile Taint, just based on the awkwardness of this, right? So we'll refresh here a little bit. We'll cast Singularity. We'll cast Soul Rot now. And that's literally a 230 Dark Glare. And that was pretty close to being almost on cooldown, barring the Evoker LOSing me with that rock wall, whatever they do. It's pretty awkward. Now, we'll look at Soul Rot here in a second. or sorry, we'll look at Vile Taint here in a second. Vile Taint feels much better cooldown-wise. Once again, it leads to more Infirmity uptime, and it can cover the second part of Dark Glare if you cast it on cooldown. Okay, so we swapped to Vile Taint here over Phantom Singularity. Now, two things here. Like I said, number one, Vile Taint's baseline duration, 10 seconds. Singularity being 13, but you can cast Vile Taint more often. It does cost a shard, but at the same time, it will indeed buff the last few seconds of Dark Glare if you're playing Malevolent Visionary, which is pretty cool. And also, your Dark Glares won't be pushed back to the 230 mark due to how the cooldown works out. There is a weird point in time where you have to hold Vile Taint for like 9-ish seconds to sync with Soul Rot at the minute mark, but I think it's likely worth it. We'll see what happens there. But same opener, Precast Haunt, UA, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life. Gonna drain to 3 here. 2, 3, cast Vile Taint. We'll go Soul Rot, and we will Dark Glare. And pray for shards to get a Dread Touch. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cast this Haunt. Now, the funny thing is, I'm used to Vile Taint being half a minute cooldown. So quite often, I'll just sit on it for like 5-6 seconds and realize, oh, I should cast my Vile Taint again here. It's going to take some getting used to, for sure. But outside of this, it's the same maintenance rotation, right? Now, watch this. We're casting Vile Taint here in 2 seconds. My Dark Glare's still out. So we'll Vile Taint here. There's Infirmity. He's still cranking from the previous cast, from his current cast of Dark Glare. The last Dark Glare, he's still going, right? So you get that Infirmity buff on the last part of his I-beams. You get a bit more damage to his I-beam again because of Vile Taint being active again. It's pretty cool. It will indeed add more value to Visionary. We'll see where it goes in Sims, all that. But outside that, this is basically just maintaining dots, right? Casting Dread Touch, casting Rapture for Dread Touch. Now, we have Vile Taint again here. We have Soul Rot in 10 seconds. I think it's worth holding for the Soul Rot here. I don't really know why you wouldn't, but I'm not 100%. Haven't seen Sims on it. We'll Vile Taint again here. Cast Soul Rot, Rapture a little bit. 1, 2, 3, catch the Corruption. Rapture again. And we have Vile Taint in about 18. And look at our Dark Glare cooldown, right? This is going to sync very well with Dark Glare, sync well with Soul Rot, and it puts us in a pretty good spot overall. Catch these dots, train a little bit here, refresh Dread Touch, catch Agony, catch Siphon Life, catch, or just cast Vile Taint, it's fine. No big deal. Look at our Soul Rot timer again. Look at our Dark Glare timer again. A much better sync than what Singularity offers, right? A much better sync. Dump some Raptures, catch the Drain Soul, Siphon Life, all that. Dread Touch here. We have to hold a little bit again here for Soul Rot, but I think it's worth it. Drain a bit here, refresh the Agony, cast Haunt, Rapture again here. We have Dark Glare in 8, we have Soul Rot in 9. We're just basically maintaining here, fishing for a proc. We got one, very nice. Rapture once, catch this, cast Vile Taint, cast the Soul Rot. Look at Dark Glare at 214. That's like exactly a 2-minute Dark Glare, because your first Dark Glare is pushed back a bit, you're casting dots. It's exactly a 2-minute Dark Glare, not a 215 Dark Glare, not a 220 Dark Glare. Right at 2 minutes, it gives you good Infirmity value, all the above. And like I said before, this Dark Glare will still be cranking when I cast this next Vile Taint. Right? It's up in 2 seconds. Drain a little bit, cast the Vile Taint, Dark Glare, still cranking. Infirmity's up, it's back up as well, he's still cranking. So it's going to be a sim thing, but seeing it as there's a few extra little added synergies between Infirmity, Dark Glare, Malevolent Visionary, I wouldn't be surprised if you end up playing Vile Taint. It might be a Malevolent Visionary plays Vile Taint build and Haunted Soul plays PS. That could be a thing as well, but Malevolent Visionary scales better with Power Infusion also, so... Now, if you're looking at Destruction and Single Target, this is the build that I'm playing. I think it's close-ish to being the best Single Target build. If not, I don't think you go into Raging Demon Fire. I don't think it's worth it. I think you just play CDF for the 2-piece, 4-piece bonus and accrue stacks quickly with it and just say, hey, whatever. You know, the damage in the 2-piece is very, very subpar. You basically... The 4-piece is what makes Destro's tier good, right? And I don't mean good by, hey, it's fun to play. It might be, it might not be to you. I'm saying good by raw damage. The 4-piece honestly isn't that bad. It's an 8% damage increase to basically every spell you cast that's up 2/3 of the time, if not higher. Basically permanent in Lust if you're getting Power Infusion. Now, putting that aside, I hit a 470k Soulfire earlier. Not too bad, all the buffs rolling. But they did indeed fix the exponential scaling on Channel Demon Fire and AoE. You're not getting basically the Guillotine bug, which was doing a ludicrous amount in AoE. That bug is fixed, so... Now, when it comes to Single Target, though, the thing with this bonus is that they did indeed add the clause today as well to whenever you cast CDF, it resets the effect. That's a good thing. It just means that if you get a 1 stack of the effect between CDF cast, it will override that, not give you an 8 stack at a short duration. So it's good. No longer need to cancel aura for all that stuff. Let's just open up. So we're going to precast a Soulfire to kickstart my damage. I'm going to drop my Infernal and then go Conflagrate and cast a Chaos Bolt and go into my CDF. The weak aura is here for max stacks. Should be. There's 8 stack and just begin casting bolts. Now, this target's not in flashpoint range, unfortunately. It is in decimation range for Soulfire, so it'll be off cooldown very quickly here. I'm not going to cast Soulfire on cooldown because it's a bit cheesy, but I mean, it feels like Destro for the most part. Not much of a difference. You want to cast CDF when Eradication's up and Roaring Blaze is up, but for the most part, it's still Destro. You just weave in a CDF whenever you can, and that's mostly the gist of it. Some might like it, some might not. I think that as far as Destro's tier is concerned, if they want to keep it based around Channel Demon Fire, which with the patch coming out in, I'd say, in less than a month at this point, probably isn't changing, I think it's likely as good as it's going to get. I don't think you're really finding much or finding any way to change. I don't think they're going to change it. I think it's staying CDF based. And that's sort of how it's going to be. And if it is staying CDF based, having a 4-piece that just straight up buffs all your damage, fire damage across the board, is likely as good as it's going to get. It's good in AoE. It's good in single target. It's applicable, I should say, in single target. Applicable in AoE. It works in most of these settings, right? It's not like it gives you a chance to cleave extra damage and it's dead in single target. The 4-piece is likely very strong for Destro. I mean, pretty strong. It's probably a pretty significant increase. I don't know the raw math on it yet, but the buff is active. I mean, my cooldown on CDF right now is 21 seconds, but if you have Power Infusion or Bloodlust or Flashpoint, the cooldown on CDF is reduced by the amount of haste that you have, right? So with it being a baseline 13-second buff, you can cast CDF, let's say once every 20 seconds without haste amps on you. With Flashpoint, with Luster PI, you're going to maintain that buff for the first, I don't know, 30, 40-ish seconds of the fight. It's a pretty substantial increase, but the problem is, like, when it comes to AoE, do you really want, when you're in the middle of casting a million random fires, or if you're in the middle of cleaving 2 mobs down, like one over here and one over here, for example, taking time off to go, all right, CDF, then begin spamming random fires a million times over and over again, can feel a bit awkward. The damage output for CDF, the 2-piece, is also putrid. It's 2.8% here, and that's honestly a bit high because I was cleaving the AoE mobs. The 2-piece damage bonus is exceptionally subpar. What they likely need to do is buff the damage of the 2-piece or by, I don't know, 100%, 50%, and just go from there. Because when it comes to feeding certain classes tier in the new raid, if they're prioritizing classes that get good value out of their 2-piece and their 4-piece, if you're looking at a Destro lock and only a Destro lock, I would assume the 2-piece is one of the lowest bonuses of any class out there, but the 4-piece is very strong. You're probably playing Demonology and AF this raid too, so Demo's bonus is strong. AF is okay-ish, probably get some buffs, but you're likely playing Demo. So there's that. I wouldn't mind seeing a buff to the 2-piece though. At this point, the damage in single target, here's CDF, and here's the 2-piece. It's pretty subpar, and this is once again inflated by the cast that I put on these dummies here. So thanks for watching, guys. That should wrap it up. Hopefully it answered the questions you might have had about Warlock tier heading into 10.1 and Aberrus. On a positive side or positive note, it's all working now. I don't believe there's any bugs anymore. Demo tier is a blast to play. Reign of Tyranny with every tyrant having a Grimoire in it feels great. Hopefully once this tier is over, they make a change for that to be a permanent thing. It'd be really, really cool to see. The spec feels so much better. Destro's cool visually, and like I said, I don't think it's getting much better unless they move away from CDF being part of your tier set. With there being less than a month, I doubt that's happening. Affliction feels fine. It's probably still a Vital Taint angle, and I wouldn't mind Ass bonus being buffed a bit. It just feels a bit weak. I want to see Sims on it, but I wouldn't mind seeing an increase to like Vital Taint PS damage, or maybe even like a further cooldown reduction on them, because it just feels sort of eh. If they want PS to be competitive, it likely needs to be half a minute and not 33. It could still be better with the Haunted Soul build, but I feel like with it being that 33-ish second cooldown, it leads to awkward CD timings, all the above. I don't know if it's going to be played over Vital Taint for a handful of reasons. But hey, if it makes Malevolent Visionary better, that's awesome. Because my Dark Lair, I want him to do some damage again. So, but any questions, guys, put them down in the comment section. I'll be sure to get back to you. Once again, week course, add-ons, and profiles, links to Twitch and Discord down below are for free for you guys. And like usual, I once again want to give one final shout out to my patrons, guys, for all support on Patreon. Thank you a million times. Really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here, as well as down below in the video description. Like I said, the 10.1 Warlock PTR spreadsheet won't be live this weekend. The Tier 3 Veilguard rank or higher Patreon gets early access to that, if you're curious. And yeah, so whether Warlock ends up being strong or not in 10.1, I assume tuning is still coming. We have less than a month until the patch hits, which is very surprising, but we'll go from there. This Thursday and Friday is a lot of testing. They're testing Heroics, the Holy Invasion, and 3 or 4 Mythic bosses. And past then, I think there's only 2 bosses left on Mythic and some retesting. This raid is coming faster than I thought. This whole patch is. It's going to be busy over the next few weeks, but I think Warlock's in a pretty good spot, barring some major tuning coming in, which I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see. So, TLDR, play Warlock. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like the video, hit the like and sub buttons up top, or I guess below. Helps out a ton. And I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.